Hello and welcome to One Man's Tracks. This is the place where I break down secondhand albums that I think are pretty cool and worth talking about, old stuff that I've just newly discovered, and a bit about the artists behind them. When I first heard today's album, I thought, oh, cool, more dense and slightly more raucous Black Keys, but when I started getting deeper into the band and their discography, I realized there are way too many other bands that I could compare them with. To just narrow them into that one lane would be ridiculous, and I kind of had a bit of a game of music trivia when listening to their other albums, because just off the top of my head I can compare them to classics like Dylan, the Beatles, Floyd, Hendrix, the Sex Pistols, the Ramones, U2, Oasis, The Verve. It just goes on and on. The White Stripes. I could just Primal Scream. I don't know. I could just keep listing them off because this band just loves music, and you can tell by every piece they put out and just the the influences that go into it, just bleeding into it in such a unique way that is distilled into the Black Rebel Motorcycle Club sound. And I'm sure I left out a few more there, but we're going to be talking about this band today that was formed in 1998 in San Francisco. They were originally called The Elements, but when they found out that band name was taken, they switched it to a 50s Marlon Brando film reference. Black Rebel Motorcycle Club was originally founded by guitarist and vocalist Peter Hayes, guitarist, bassist, and vocalist Robert Levon Bean, and drummer Nick Jago. Their unique, hard, psychedelic blues rock distilled from that love of music and a desire to keep a rock and roll torch burning got them a deal with Virgin Records, and in 2001 they self-produced and released BRMC. They would tour in support of that album over the next couple of years, writing while they did so, and right off the back of that tour they recorded this. Their 2003 sophomore album, Take Them On Your Own. Definitely not a live album, but one made with a live audience in mind. It's their highest energy project by far, and it is just the thing to hook me in and have me wanting more. With its infectious grooves, its moody, sometimes hostile lyricism, and its driving rhythm section, it's got me up and rocking and wanting to go to a BRMC show. This band is not one-dimensional by any stretch, but each of their albums does have this unique tonal quality about them that has this similar sound stretching across and linking the whole project together, kind of taking a nice snapshot of where the band were at the time. I think they've challenged themselves to never repeat themselves, and therefore their newer projects, they've stripped back more of their layers of influence, and they've created some really interesting listens. But I'm just such a sucker for this 2000 stuff they recorded with Nick, and Baby 81 is a great project. I'm sure Hal will grow on me. Their debute's great, and this second of 8 sits pretty high on the top of my BRMC tier list, and I'm excited to get into exactly why it sits so high up there. We're going to start out with the infectious bass line on the opening track, Stop. It's just a to-the-point rock track that has this great chorus and sets the tone for the rest of the project. Six Barrel Shotgun is a denser, more distorted song that contrasts a pretty intense lyricism with high-tempo, upbeat melody that sort of musically illustrates the battle to stay true to yourself while avoiding the commercial tendencies that come with a bit of popularity in the music scene. Then they go back to a more laid-back, traditional Black Rebel sound with We're All in Love. It's as classic rock as these guys get, and like a trio of dusty Beatles, they keep the first few tracks on this album tremendously danceable. Now, In Like the Rose is quite a bit more mystifying and moodier. It's maybe about drug addiction or a lost love. Their songwriting sometimes has this ambiguous quality that makes their music a little bit more interesting, more re-listenable, and perhaps appeal to a wider audience. I'm not sure. Either way, this track, like all of these, when you step back from it, has this distinct tone to it that really blends into the rest of the album. And I guess that could be a bad thing for this particular song, but for the album listening experience, it's great and it just flows along nicely. The tambourine on Ha Ha Hi Babe gives me immediate White Stripes vibes, but the droning, atmospheric, filtered guitar is its own thing entirely. This one's loud, simple, somewhat dejected delivery still has me grooving and continues to fit in tonally. Possibly with a nod to The Who, this next track's titled Generation, and it's about the increasing apathy amidst the many peers of the band. It's certainly not coming out in defense of the generation. It maybe has the band wishing they were born a few decades sooner, but maybe then they wouldn't have had as much to contribute. The album hits its lowest and chillest point so far with Shade of Blue. I just love the guitars that accompany the chorus here of I don't care if you can take it, I can't take it anymore, I'll die. I think this one's highlighting a more personal and intimate kind of apathy. It feels like a one-sided relationship where you just leave yourself in this emotionally abused state and just look back on the relationship that was with rose-colored glasses, on something that you will never be able to get back, but you just can't quite come to terms with yet. On a less depressing note, let's shift into gear to a noise rock track about anti-conformity and anti-commercialism. It's titled U.S. Government, and it's got these great dynamic tempo shifts that keep my simple mind's punk and psych rock needs satisfied. It's almost jarring to hear them just have acoustic guitars backing their ninth song, I Am Aching, at this point. It's pretty unusual to have them make such a stripped back song. It's this sweet and sorrowful tale that feels like the protagonist from Shade of Blue coming to terms with and realizing what they need to do to move on and live their life. If that is the case, then the next song suddenly represents the difficult journey ahead and the heavy burden that comes with freedom. It's this epic, ominous, bluesy instrumental that has this back and forth swaying effect, got me rocking along, trudging forward along for the whole ride. Rise or Fall sees return to that up-tempo, distorted rock sound from the beginning. Another great, energized chorus before we jam off towards the finish line on Heart and Soul, bringing back that continuous theme of unrequited love, throwing yourself at someone who's really not there to give you any time of day and then waiting kind of hopelessly for something to change. The last line of this whole album is, I fear my selfishness will be the end of this if you don't save me. Save me! For a band with such a strong and uncompromising sound, they come off surprisingly vulnerable and a bit needy, at least in the personal relationships department here. Perhaps it's not their most mature project, but I think it's well mixed, and I really connect personally with the rawness and the live band appeal that it has. And I think that comes across in a lot of their early stuff. Maybe being able to work through these more frantic tracks allowed them to grow and create the more visionary stuff that they've been putting out more recently. I obviously think that when Nick Jago had to leave the band in 2008 and was replaced by Leah Shapiro, that almost definitely would have an effect on their creative process and their sound in general. Regardless, I'm still a fan, and I'm looking forward to the possibility of hopefully more BRMC albums in the future. I'd love to know what your personal favorite album of theirs is, and any and all thoughts you have on this and the tracks I talked about today. Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you like the video. If you made it to the end here, I appreciate you leaving that, and maybe considering subscribing for next week's secondhand album review. Take care and rock on, guys.
Well, ha ha ha, baby, gonna keep it on the ground, keep it on the ground.